Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Welcome back to Tipsy Casting. I'm Jen, and this is my co-host, Jess. Thank you so much to everyone who's listened and subscribed. We appreciate you for tuning in every week and for our chats, and we're loving the feedback we are getting in the reviews and on the crazy comments on Instagram. How's your week been going, Jess? Anything new you want to chat about?
Nothing too crazy right now. I think, if I haven't lost track of time, we're in week 3 of the strike. So I think it's just keeping myself sane and occupied in the meantime.
Yeah.
How about you?
It's good. I spent 5 days at Cannes Film Festival, which was my first time, and have no sleep. But it was amazing, and I highly recommend people going to. It was my first film fest overall. I've never been to one before, and I think everyone should go to them. I wish I had gone earlier in my career because you learn so much about just how the industry functions, in that respect. So it was really awesome. I had a great time. Met so many fun people. Was in French Riviera.
You started with Cannes as your first film festival. Talk about starting with a splash. I'm super excited to hear about all of the things that happened. Aside from the fact that you've had zero sleep, I'm sure you're drinking now. So what are you drinking?
I know. Tonight I'm going with a gin and tonic, a classic G&T. So what about you? What's on the Jess?
On the Jess side, today I'm going something a little bit more straightforward. I'm not a beer person, but I do love a cider. And I like the Golden State cider, the apple cider, which is delicious and a little bit dangerous. Really cool. It's really good. My brother-in-law introduced me to it, and it's really yummy, and I highly recommend it.
Nice. Is it sweet?
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a sweetness to it for sure. It's got the apple flavor for sure.
Yeah, I have to always be careful with ciders because I don't do well with like super sweet things.
It's not crazy sweet. It's got a little bit of a tartness to it, which is nice. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, so that's what we're drinking. This week we are sitting down with the wonderful Elle Cairns, who is a manager in the UK with the wonderful company 42. Elle has loved acting and the industry since she was a young girl and has been able to turn that passion into repping some wonderful actors. Let's bring Elle in.
Hi, Elle. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. All good here in London. Yeah.
Good. I'm in London. Jess is in LA. First things first. What delicious cocktail are you drinking with us tonight?
Well, it's not really a cocktail. It's just a very strong gin and tonic. I didn't have any cocktail goods in the flat. I just realized when I got home. But yeah, it's doing the trick. So.
To be fair, I think gin and tonic is a really good cocktail, especially a very London one.
Yeah, exactly. Simple, can't go wrong.
Yeah.
What have you got?
If you had your choice, if you had a full bar at your disposal, what's your usual drink of choice?
I really like anything with mint. So mojito is good, although it's super sugary. It's it just goes on forever as well. It's sort of a never-ending drink. Yeah.
I love that.
Nothing with tequila. I can't handle tequila, but
same here.
Rum's good.
Have you done a what is it, mint julep?
I've never had one. It sounds really like Gatsby. I would like to try one. It's quite old-fashioned.
It's very prominent. Yeah.
I think I'd enjoy one of those. Next time I'm in the States, I'll have to order a mint julep. I feel like it's quite. I don't think you get them here that much. Maybe not. I don't know.
No. Yeah. I even think in the States it's quite hard to find them. They're very prominent in the South and are horse races and things like that.
Okay, that's where I need to go then.
In the South. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get one.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. It's awesome to have you on. We're very, very excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just dive a little dive into all that is Elle. So would you mind telling us how you kind of got into the industry, became an agent, that kind of thing?
Sure. So I kind of got into it, I think I'd have to say from it's not anything I would have thought of unless I did sort of all the youth theatre and drama clubs I did when I was a kid. So I was sort of like doing a bunch of that from when I'm really young. I think about like 6 or 7 up until I left school. I was in a play every year at the Edinburgh Fringe, which was super fun. And, not like super serious. I didn't take it incredibly seriously and think I, definitely want to become an actress. But it was an amazing way to like meet actors and get into the industry. And I've always just been kind of obsessed with theatre. So I grew up really near the Fringe. I'm from Scotland, hence the accent. So that was always really accessible. I was really lucky. It was just on my doorstep as a child, like being able to see all of that amazing like talent every summer. And then kind of got to the point of leaving school and thankfully realized I definitely should not pursue drama school as a career because I was definitely not good enough as to audition or anything. So realized I shouldn't go down that route early enough, thank goodness. Went to uni in Edinburgh and continued to just kind of see as much theatre as possible. Had kind of met quite a lot of actors through the plays that I'd done in the past, during the summer holidays and stuff. And then I got a job in the Fringe when I graduated uni, and that was actually in like publicity for comedians and a few plays. So I was sort of doing a kind of a mini, very intensive internship. It was like every single day for 6 weeks, no break, no nothing. But it was amazing sort of working with all these comedians and casts of shows, going to see their shows, taking them to press, collating all their press. And I kind of met like all these people whose jobs I didn't really know existed. So like agents and managers and publicists, and kind of realized like, oh, this is great. You get to do all the fun things and see all the performances and work with performers, but not actually be performing. So I realized I kind of had to move to London because everybody I was working with was just up for that kind of month. So I moved down here and slept on like friends' sofas and managed to, without much of a plan other than just kind of apply to every place I could. And I sort of started out looking into PR for artists and theatre. But then a friend of mine who's an actor sort of said, oh, you'd probably like really enjoy working at an agency, and loads of them have internships. So that's literally how I got into it. I just kind of Googled internships at agencies and I managed to get one at an agency called BWH. I'm not sure if you guys know of them. They're really lovely. They're quite a small company, but they have some really gorgeous clients, and they're just really lovely people. So I did an internship there, and eventually they gave me a job as an assistant, and I kind of like learned all the ropes and got promoted. It was very slow and steady because it was a small company, but learned all the basics and saw tons and tons of theatre, which was amazing just for me to kind of build my taste and knowledge of actors, and going to all the drama schools that are in London, which we have so many of. So I did that for a few years, kind of dabbled in starting my own list. And then I was approached by like a much bigger company called Avalon Management and Production. They have an LA office. So they are like, sorry, I'm just going to put a little light on. They are the polar opposite of the very small company I was working at. They're massive, quite corporate. There's about 250 of them. So I went from sort of working with 7 people to like 200 people, which was a bit of a culture shock. So that was a slightly different role. That was like, they have a kind of casting department there. So they called me like a casting agent, which I certainly wasn't doing your job, but I was sort of halfway between an agent and someone liaising with casting directors. They made a lot of things in-house. They make a lot of their own productions from their own clients who write and direct as well as perform and do comedy. So it was sort of like a facilitating type position. So I was there for a few years, and that was great. But it did make me sort of miss working with straight acting talent as opposed to comedy talent. That was it's comedy's tough. Like I don't know if you guys have worked with comedians too much,
Yeah,
but
many times.
It's quite different.
Yeah.
It's a very because they're sort of like these amazing people who do all of these different things, and it's challenging because their schedules are also for one thing just hard to get your head around. And they're doing tours and stand up and panel shows and the Fringe, and then also they're doing acting, and it's just a bit mad. Wow. So anyway, I realized that kind of agenting was really what I wanted to do with kind of more traditional straight actors. So I got the job at 42 MP, where I am now, 2.5 years ago as an associate agent. And then since then have been promoted to, a manager in my own right. So I've been doing my own thing now for about a year and a half, that sort of time frame. So yeah, that's me. Sorry, that went on a bit long.
You had said that you were an associate agent, got promoted to manager. What? I didn't know that there was like a differentiation within an agency like that.
There's not. Sorry, I should have said I was an associate manager, not an associate agent. It's just, to us in the UK, agents and managers were the exact same thing. Okay. Like the terms are just interchangeable. So it depends what agency you're at. So at Avalon and 42, we refer to ourselves as managers. At BWH and several other sort of smaller boutique agencies, we're still described as agents, but doing the exact same job. So I sometimes forget. But the manager. Yeah.
Do you ever find that when you're talking to your talent, because I know that especially working at 42, you have kind of, you guys are elite in my opinion. And so I think like a lot of actors, since moving to London, I found out that they don't really understand that in LA, there is a huge differentiation between agents and managers. So do they come to you and they're like, I need you, like, how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure you get that a lot of them wanting to try to figure out.
Like, to be honest, I'm still learning what the difference is. I feel like I didn't understand it at all when I first started, and I have a much better like grasp of it now. But yeah, they do ask quite a lot. Yeah. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's do this. Let's talk it through. But funnily enough, I actually had like an actor friend of mine who I've known for a long time, sort of asked me about the possibilities of having both in the UK, which is not something I've heard discussed before. And it's sort of like, whoa, that's crazy. Don't go there. I don't think your agent would be happy if you were thinking about adding another UK representative.
Yeah.
It's just not done, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because like as I always say, I'm like, I don't think there's a point here, because in the States, the agents do nothing for like the day-to-day developmental stuff. They're much more business, where you guys do it all. You're business, but you're also like hands-on, day-to-day, fundamental.
Managing the sort of logistics as well as like the deals and what. Yeah, exactly.
When you do have a client who is sort of breaking into the American market a little bit, and they come to you asking for sort of an extension to look for a manager in the US, is there, because I've talked to many actors over the years, and there seems to be a sort of a apprehension when that conversation comes up to stretch over here.
Yeah, there is a little bit. I guess you just kind of, you want to make sure that it's the right time for them, and that they're not going to go into it with sort of false hopes. I feel like it's got to be a specific time when it makes sense for their careers, and not just because they think. I mean, yeah, it's a real tricky one. It's also like you want to be working with someone you like working with, but also someone you think is right for them, and that is going to move them forward. Because ultimately, I find personally, like, the commission thing, with everyone works differently and everyone has a different opinion on kind of, okay, we started to share this UK based British client. We bring on a, US manager. Some people sort of say, some agents here will say, okay, we're not going to do any sort of commission split until you've brought something to the table. And I don't know, I find that can like muddy the waters somewhat. And there's much more of a good faith kind of will with the relationship if everyone's on the same page and everyone's benefiting from that client working on the same, I don't know. Then again,
scale,
it can go the other way, but you'd hope it wouldn't. But yeah, it is tricky because you want to set up good meetings. You want them to meet people that they'll like, but also people that will like them. And there's a sense of like responsibility if maybe it doesn't go the way they hoped it would go, or it takes a long time to get a response, or I really want to meet that person and that person doesn't feel that you're the right client for them, or it's the right time for them to meet you, and that's like sort of, well, why couldn't you get me a meeting with that person? Well, it's not, I don't think it's me, I think it's you. Sorry.
I think it's also it's about like managing expectations is a big part of it, because I was working on a series that there was a young American actress that it was like a really big deal for her to have the lead of this series, and the rest, it was shooting in Wales, and the rest of the cast have been more established. They've done a lot more, their resume has already been built, and there was a sense of expectation and entitlement from in this case, the American actress, that she believed that she was at the same level and should be having access to the same opportunities. And it created some hostility within her own reps. And not hostility from their side, but she started looking elsewhere just because she thought she would have access to those opportunities if she was somewhere else, which was not the case.
That happens so often. It's it's really hard.
Frustrating, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it will happen to everyone, you can work as hard as you possibly can and like bring as many opportunities to the table as you possibly can, and it will still happen to every single representative everywhere.
So how do you I guess go out and find new talent on your side then, because I know it's a bit different than the States, I think.
I think like I've been quite lucky because I've sort of worked with quite a lot of agents over the years, and it's taken me a sort of wiggly route to get to the point where I am now. I've built up quite a good relationship with lots of actors, and I've been really lucky to have been like recommended a lot of clients by other actors. So the majority of mine are like via agents I've worked with or actors that I already work with, to be honest, and have written into me. But drama schools are kind of traditionally the way to do it here. And I will need to be hitting up the drama schools for class of 2024. So all the sort of shows coming out later this year. But you have to really be in it from the word go to get it's really quite brutal. You have to sort of be at the first show, showing interest from like the first moment, doing meetings from the, it's kind of mad. You have to really commit to it.
Wow. It's so super competitive.
Totally. And you can have like meeting after meeting, go and see all of the shows they're in, go to their showcase, take them for drinks, take them for lunch. And still a lot of the time to be fair to them, a lot of the time they're not actually allowed to sign until later in the year. And then it gets really tough because you're kind of like having to start sending them projects, sending them scripts, sending them tapes, sending them auditions, because if you don't do it, someone else will do it. And then I guess they're thinking, why is that agent who likes me sending me stuff and that one isn't? And that can get really complex because if they book something via one person but decide to go with another person, it's like who works that out? Like, it's not a nice situation to get into. It's a bit like, ugh.
I was gonna say that's kind of interesting that you can actually send stuff before you actually sign them. I don't think I knew that.
My first company that I worked at had a policy that they just like wouldn't do it, and maybe that meant they lost out on a few people. But I kind of rate the sort of policy itself. it's yeah, because once you start, you can't stop. It's sort of like you've got to see it through to the bitter end when they make a decision one way or another. And I've known people get really, really, really upset because they've been tracking someone for like, 9 months or something crazy. And they thought, they've had several meetings with them. They built like a rapport with them. They've sent them a bunch of things. And then they felt like, okay, I'm definitely in the running. And then, okay, no, they go to, and it's like, oh my God, it's gutting.
That's so fascinating. So I don't know if what the terminology is there, but here we call it hip pocketing. So
Ooh,
where the
I love
agent's
that.
like,
I'm going to use that term.
Yeah, where you're like the client is not officially signed to the agent or agency, and so they just like low key send them stuff. But it sounds like everybody is hip pocketing the same people at the same time, just waiting to see what happens.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's and there's unfortunately it's normally the same, like, I don't know, 5 or so people from each graduating year who everyone is going after. It's tough. Yeah,
it's nice
it's
for
tough.
them.
But I'm gonna have to get in there this year because I haven't. I couldn't do it last year. I just when I was sort of starting to like build and sign a few people, and luckily a few of them sort of got jobs off the mark. I kind of thought, okay, you've got to be in it from the start, otherwise there's no point.
Yeah. Do you, because I know in the States it's a big thing that, like I've, recommend actors to representation in the States before. Is that something casting directors do here in the UK?
They do, actually. They do. Yeah. I've had quite a few. I've had a couple of clients via that, or sometimes they'll sort of an actor will write to you, and then the next day you'll get a phone call or something from a casting director just saying, just so you know, I really rate this person, and I've cast them in this, that, and the other, and or often you'll get, I have had that a few times actually. Certainly, like a follow-up call, which is really nice from casting directors that know you quite well, just being like, we're so happy that this person's come to you. We think they're amazing. We cast them in this, that, and the other, and we'll definitely see them, which is always very encouraging and nice to hear. Yeah, when it's someone new as well.
I'm so fascinated to hear what the relationship is like there with casting. Like, do you find it to be a quite intimate relationship? Are there some offices that are a little bit more, and you don't have to name names, but you can, and we'll bleep them out. But like, are there ones that are harder to get a hold of, or is it feel sort of more intimate?
Definitely. It's like the relationship with casting directors is everything here. Like, it's everything. It's so important. And there's definitely some offices that are harder to get hold of. There's some that are scary. You don't necessarily want to call, but you have to kind of, There's some that are like absolutely lovely and will let you bang on and on and on about everyone and say, yeah, they sound great. Send me their stuff. Yeah. And then you never hear again. Like, there's some that really are like super responsive to suggestions, will always come back either way, which is the best thing ever, because it's like, okay, we know if it's a no, we know if it's a yes, we know why. And there's some that, it's really hard to get hold of. So, and I think it's gotten worse since the pandemic, for sure, because so many people sort of got used to that like remote working life, and a lot of people don't have offices anymore, so it's sort of harder to, there's a slight sort of like hesitancy about calling an important casting director on their mobile as well. You kind of want to be a little bit respectful and call the office and ask, you know what I mean? It just feels a little bit like, but a lot of them have moved out of London and are kind of doing things from wherever, because you kind of can.
And there's no office. That's it.
Exactly. I mean, we're really lucky at 42 in that we like represent a lot of casting directors. And I know that works slightly differently in the US as well, doesn't it? In terms of representation. But that always helps.
Yeah, it's really kind of crazy because, like, as somebody who's worked in LA for so long and then move over here and establish myself here, I mean, Molly from 42 has been so enlightening when I've met with you guys, because I will just give you guys props. You guys have been one of the nicest, like, companies to me since moving here. And like I've done lots of generals with your clients, and they're just all so lovely. I mean, they
Which
really
they
are just like,
appreciate so much, by the way. It's
oh,
amazing. Yeah.
I love them just as much. But it's been really fascinating kind of learning that, like, because again, I have a pretty big agent in the States and Jess is rep there,
Yeah.
and it's like we love them, but it is kind of really annoying because it's like we're trying to like cultivate work, or if we're having a downtime and they don't help you at all. And it's like you're really just there just to do the deals. And then here, not only, but to be fair, we also don't I don't
Commission.
believe
Commission,
give
that's
any
it.
kind of
Yeah,
commission.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, if we were in a position, because that's not a conversation that has ever come up for me. Like, if my agent told me, if you were to commission me, I would actively seek work for you. I just don't think they're interested.
Yeah.
Also, compared to what actors
Right.
make generally, we don't make that much.
Yeah, it's funny because the money side of it is so different between the UK and the US, isn't it? Like, I feel like, traditionally the British money is like quite rubbish compared for actors, I mean, compared to
Yeah.
the US money that you can earn, which
Mhm.
I think is still generally true. But yeah, it depends where you're at with casting as well, like sometimes it can be a lot better. If you're sort of thinking like a weekly fee or a month, I don't know, or a fee for a project that you're working on for X amount of time, considering you can work on other projects at the same time, it's like it can be quite good, but it's a different ball game in the States, I guess, with what actors can earn, because I guess it's just kind of traditionally always been higher than here.
Yeah, the way that you calculate the rates, because I worked on Willow for
a
handful of weeks, sort of covering Lauren Evans.
Amazing.
And I was doing the equity deals, and I was like, I don't know what any of this is. The engagement rates, the daily rates, like there's so many levels of rates that I was so confused.
I know. It is quite mad. It is a bit mad. I'm really glad I learned it like when I was younger and just kind of got it drummed into me, because I think if I tried to like get my head around it now, I'd be like, what? This doesn't make any sense.
What's funny though is like being somebody over like newer to the UK, and I've met with like so many agents and actors and everything. I would say like 50% of people don't understand it. Even to this day. I mean, it's like half the time they're like, well, yeah, somebody will usually step in at one point who knows what's happening, but I'm good with them just telling me what to do, like nobody really fully comprehends it.
We're really lucky at 42. Everyone's quite helpful, and there's normally like somebody who knows. So if you don't know, you kind of feel like, help. And also the rates change every few years, which, they sort of increase slightly to match, inflation or whatever. But you have to like keep on top of that as well. It's tricky. Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. And we were talking a little bit before about sort of the current climate of the industry, at least in the US, where, the WGA is on strike. We're renegotiating DGA, SAG starting in a couple of weeks. We might be striking on that front too. Who knows?
My gosh.
What has that impact been for the UK so far? And do you see it sort of getting a little bit more intense?
I think it will get more intense. I think it's kind of yet to hit fully here, just because it's not been that long, and I think it could take slightly longer to kind of feel the sort of full effects. But it certainly feels really quiet in general, and I'm wondering if maybe that is, not just because that's the way it is right now. It's actually that wave is starting to ripple through to this side. So yeah, that's a bit of a worry. And it feels quiet in terms of what's being sent through from the US for our clients as well. For, maybe since like the beginning of May, it sort of felt that way for sure. Because we sort of share among ourselves what comes through from the US, just because it's sort of helpful for everyone to see from agencies and from managers. And it's definitely it feels like it's winding down. So people with, US rep, I'm sure will also feel like actors with US rep will kind of feel that as well. I guess you just sort of worry about like the next sort of after the summer when things are supposed to you got the like sort of final quarter of the year and things are supposed to, you know, start shooting in September to December, you're kind of thinking, oh God, is there actually going to be anything?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
interesting because I think like when we were sort of just having the conversation about the potential strike originally, my thought was that it would create sort of an uptick in the UK because studios and networks would start outsourcing their productions.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to have happened. And I've never seen this before, but I saw that like a lot of, I think it was the UK and Australian writers have committed to solidarity with the WGA, which I don't think has ever happened.
No, I don't think that's happened before.
You know what's interesting is I was talking to a different agent 2 weeks ago, I think, and it was like kind of right when things were kind of getting hot and heavy with the WGA, and she kind of said, not that it's been like a threat by any means, but she said that there are a lot of writers in the UK that they rep that are nervous that if they quote unquote cross the line now, that they'll be like kind of blacklisted in the future in the States if they do want to go right over there, because they can say, well, you didn't like stay in solidarity.
You
kind
weren't
of
in
like
solidarity with us then.
Yeah. And because
scary.
it's becoming such a global industry,
it is.
and it's like so much
feels
back
like
and
everyone
forth
is talking about it as well. It feels like it's not just people in the industry who are aware of it this time round. I don't know if you get that sense as well, but
for sure.
Yeah.
Even Biden commented on it. Like it's a big deal over here, I think.
Definitely, yeah. And I don't know, it just feels like a bit of a scary time with, like, again, like another actor I know was talking about how like things like AI are kind of creeping in and like people are getting concerned about that. And I just thought, oh my God, we've just come through the pandemic. I don't want to think about robots taking our jobs.
It's so hard to not feel like the doomsday lady every single day when I talk to people. I'm like, everything's on fire. Run.
Totally, exactly. But yeah, hopefully we'll come through it. I guess it's just too early to tell.
Yeah. And I do think it's a bit tough that like it's come to this where we were off for so long because of the pandemic and not making money and stuff, and then it just feel like you're starting to get going again, and then to come to another screaming halt. It's just so it's a bit like, oh gosh, come on guys, like help a sister out, we gotta work.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite like disheartening, isn't it?
Yeah. It's necessary, but it's tough to sort of try to see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when you're seeing like David Zaslav come out and be like, they're going to come back to work because they love working. And
to be fair, he just got booed though. Did you see that article? He just got booed when he did his commencement speech. Yeah.
Is it Boston University, I think?
Boston University, I started laughing.
Oh, good.
So you couldn't even hear him because they were booing so loud.
They were booing so loud, yeah. Well, that's what you get.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so any like fun, crazy stories that you have for us that like actors have ever done to like get your attention, or just as an agent, just because I mean actors are such a cool, unique breed that I feel like, especially in your job, you're hand in hand with them.
Well, or maybe even what you've done to court somebody that is out of the norm.
I don't think I don't know if I've done anything that crazy myself to court someone, apart from like someone I had a major crush on when I was a lot younger, and went well out of my way to kind of get him a rep meeting at the agency I was working at the time. But nothing, nothing too
Did you go to
crazy.
His house with some flowers?
I just went to his show. I went to his show and brought, it actually worked out. Like it turned out, the agency I was working at, they were into him, so they were happy to meet him. But in hindsight, the main reason behind that was because I had a major crush on him, not because I sort of sincerely believed in his talent, even though he was good. But yeah, in terms of like people approaching me, I've had like a few weird ones recently. I've had this one with an actor who I've known for a long time, who's kind of been on a bit of a journey rep wise, and he's now settled with like a really good boutique agency in the UK. Really, really good, in my opinion, kind of one of the absolute best smaller agencies you have, just like an incredible list. And he also has a US manager and a US agent. And he's got some nice work via them as well, but albeit a few years ago. And he's asked me to meet him a few times for like advice and a drink, which is fine. And he recently sort of, after we'd met and had a chat, and he'd sort of, talked about how he was feeling a bit disillusioned with the US side. And I was kind of thinking, honestly, like, I feel like them kind of remaining on side and supporting you is great. It sounds like they really like are with you for the full journey. And it's been a long time since he worked, but I didn't want to say that in so many words. Yeah. He asked me, if I could be his US manager. While he would remain with his amazing, very wonderful US agent who he'd only signed with a few months ago. And I just thought, hang on a minute, that is not, I need to, yeah, so I'll keep them, but I'll also have you. And I can really give it a shot that way. And I just thought, hang on a minute, I can just say right now, if any of my clients said that to me, I'd like you, but I'd also like to go and get another UK representative, I'd say, you have to make a decision. It's me or, and if it's not me, then that's very sad. But, and he kind of thought I'd really madly overreacted about that. But, it's just kind of, that was a real odd one. And he didn't really see it how I saw it, but it is just not the done thing here. And no one would be happy about that situation, just because you think, okay, my agent's great, but actually if I had another one, I'd maybe be getting like double the opportunities coming through, which is also just not how it works.
To be fair, I don't think it's right, but when I was in the States, I did see like really small agents there who are like, a dime a dozen in the States, like these really tiny actors, they pop up on breakdowns like 5 times with a different agent every time. I'm like, what is going on? No. I was like, it kind of like
which
immediately
one do
like
I go to? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, even that, but then I think it's a bit dirty, because I think you should sign with somebody that you like, and so I see somebody,
and you have to leave one before you start the other. Yeah, so that was a bit odd. And then I had another strange one a couple of weeks ago where a client who is represented by a company I used to work at, and I won't say which one, because there's been a couple. She emailed me and said, "Oh, hi, how are you getting on? Long time no speak. I've got, I'd love to chat to you I'd love to go for a coffee with you because I would really like to hear your opinion on something, but maybe, or have a call or whatever." And I thought, this is a bit odd. And I thought she wanted to talk about writing representation, because I knew she was an actor, also a writer, and we have a lit department at 42. So I thought maybe she wants to talk about lit representation, and if I could introduce her to someone. And I thought, I don't want to be rude and not reply, but I don't have time for a coffee. So I said, "Hi, look, yep, sure, give the office a ring if you want, and I'll try and help." So she called me and she said, "So I want to talk about my agent, who was one of my former bosses." And I said, "Oh, okay." So this was taking a different route than I thought it would. And then she said, "Yeah, so, I'm having she basically sort of did a bit of a character assassination on him on the phone and was like, can you back me up here? Because you've worked with him and you know him. And I want you to kind of corroborate what I'm saying." And it was just really awkward. And I thought, you can't call me and ask me to sort of, this industry is so small. Yeah. And I get on really well with the former 2 places that I've worked, and I'm not going to sit and kind of badmouth another agent at another company that I'm still close with. And I just kind of thought, it's such an odd thing to do, because then, eventually she said, I'd like you to represent me at some point during the conversation. But that was a really odd one, I thought.
Yeah. I was gonna say, until you just said that last part, I was like, what is she trying to gain from this for you to like try to back up you bashing your old boss? Like what would that accomplish in the end, you know?
Really, really strange. And I said, like, this is not the conversation you should be having with me. Like, if you're unhappy with your representation, you need to talk to them about your feelings and not talk to me about it, because I'm not going to, sit and sort of slag someone off with you. So that was a weird one. And then sometimes just generally you get people writing to you that you said you sent a really nice email back explaining why you couldn't meet them at this time and wish them all the best. And then they'll write to you again, and then you'll do it one more time, and then they write to you again and again and again and again and again. I had a guy this week who's done that so many times, and he was like, hey, just wanted to check if you're in Cannes right now, because I'm here. And I can't keep replying anymore. I've got to stop.
I would almost be like nervous at that point, because you're like, what if you were like in Cannes and then you're like, why are you like stalking me? Like
I should have said Jen's in Cannes though. I could set it up as being.
Hey, but I know. Go stalk her.
You would not have wanted to meet this one. You would not have wanted. But I find that odd as well. Just the
I do have a question on that, because like out here, it's a different, I think, environment that unless someone just says, because I feel like I've seen so many responses that agents and managers will send out to actors of like, oh, you don't fit our client list right now, or, they sort of leave the door open in a way, or, your resume is not quite there, because I don't know what the culture there is about. Here, it's a lot of agencies won't take you on until you've got many recurring guest stars or just guest stars in general, or auditioning for series regulars and that sort of thing. So they sort of leave the door open in a way that that actors will start to reach out again. So is there that same space there? Is there an open door, or do you kind of say, we're not interested, and that's it?
I think it's honestly, like, I kind of like try and look at them all one by one and do it on a case by case basis, because genuinely sometimes it's like, if things were different, if I had space, then but otherwise I'm quite like to the point, and just don't really I don't really leave it open to like, oh, if you write back in 6 months. It's more kind of a nice no is a no. But I think here it's, but also I'm sure this happens in the States as well, is if someone writes to you who maybe doesn't have the credits but has some amazing, I don't know, they've auditioned and they've sent you a self-tape, or they have an amazing look, or they're just something that you're looking for, you could still be interested, right? It's not just about like how many credits they have already. Or is it? I don't know.
I think on the management side, there's way more interest in developing actors, right? And agents are very restrictive. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot the separation. Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. And I found that as well. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I work with more managers than agents anyway on my list currently.
Yeah. So do you find that like, because I feel like such great talent's coming out of the UK right now. And like, do you think that once they've maybe done like a hit show or something like that, do you think it's necessary for them to go and get US reps? Or do you think it's more case by case? Or,
I think it's totally case by case, honestly. I don't think it's 100% necessary in every situation. And I think sometimes it can happen like organically. In fact, that's, I recently took on a really young actress she's doing great. And that just kind of organically happened, that an agency was interested in her. It wasn't like we were reaching out to people because it just felt way too early, but because she got a good job, and that's what brought it about. So I think that's kind of almost the way you want it to happen. You want people to reach out to you.
I guess maybe part of my question too is like, I've heard that like a lot of the US stuff that's happening, either that's coming over here or like is just big in the States. You guys now have access to it, where maybe that wasn't the case in the past. So like, it's like, why get a US rep if you can kind of do it for them? Is that
it does feel more international, now, I think. And I think that has improved since the pandemic. You know, it does feel more like you can act there. It feels like there's more US casting directors putting out like spotlight breakdowns or coming through to us with an email and just like a breakdown on email saying like, please can you send me suggestions, or like, actually if you have anyone right for this, please can they tape, like, so that feels like it's opened up. So I guess, you know, if it wasn't quite the right time to 100% like go for it with the team, you could argue that, okay, actually we're seeing a lot of those opportunities and they're opening it up a bit more internationally. And also like, it depends on the agency you're at as well. Like, it's super helpful here being so open and sharing information. And that's one of the good things about the company that I really like. And not hiding away like what's come through for your clients. And that's helpful for everyone. So that also helps going after those opportunities for people who maybe don't have US rep. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I keep getting asked, you know, it's just funny because I do so many generals here that everyone keeps asking. They're like, how do I, you know, should I go get somebody in the US? And I'm like, to me, I'm like, no.
I mean, like, I'd err on the side of not unless it was really, really important. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I'm just thinking out loud. I feel the same, basically. I think that's the right advice.
I know, because like, to be fair, I actually have like, I think a quite unique perspective on it, where I've now been over here long enough to know a lot of the agents and managers here, but then I know so well how the US reps work. And to me, I feel like, as much as I love so many of the US reps, and we talked about that in a previous episode, but like here, it's like you guys care so much about your clients, and you really, the amount of like effort and time you develop and you put into developing them, and like just really are hands on and even care about like their family and things like that. I think that's something that is not as prevalent in the States. And, you know, some people I know over here, actor wise, have always, they, you know, even on random generals, they'll say, well, you know, do you know this guy in the States? Like, he's my manager, and, you know, he just hasn't done really much for me, or, you know, I'm not getting what I thought I would. And I, you know, my kind of advice, whether it's probably good advice or bad advice, I'm always like, I would just stick with your UK ones, because like I said, all the agents and managers I've met over here seem to be so much more genuinely interested in careers and developing things, rather than just let's make this amount of money. It's this, stat, you know, this project has this kind of status. And I find that, to me, it's very exciting being new to the UK to kind of see reps be so involved in not in every aspect of their life, you know?
Yeah.
I have found myself because of that. And I think there's something that's, you know, obviously, like Jen said, there are agents that we love to deal with in the US, but I feel like the pandemic has done something else where there's a lot less willingness to engage on projects because it's become more of a bottom dollar business out here. And so with international clients, I have found myself initially reaching out to the UK reps before I reach out to the Americans, because I get a faster response and more engaged. And it's a shame because
we're very
there
keen.
are people. Yeah, you're very keen. But yeah, so we definitely appreciate the level of interest and engagement that's coming from across the pond, for at least over here.
That's so
it's hard
nice
to get
hear.
Anybody.
God, that's so interesting. Because we kind of think, I mean, like, we're lucky to get anything, you know, from that side.
Yeah. It's funny. I literally I have a producer from LA that I've worked with, who's more of an international producer, who's bringing something to the UK later this year, who called me because he was like, I made this offer and to a UK actor through he's very big, but he made it to the US rep. And he was like, I cannot even get her to return a phone call, an email, or anything. And this is like a really well-known producer. And he's like, I don't know what to do, Jen. And I was like, he has a UK agent. Let me just call him really quick. And so I pick up the phone, call this guy, and he's like, oh yeah, we got it. He's not even available. They didn't tell you? We had this conversation like 2 weeks ago. I said, no, it doesn't sound like that. So then I called my producer back, and he was just livid. And I was like, and I kind of had to explain to him what Jess was just saying. I was like, whenever you see a UK rep, just go to them. They're so much more responsive and engaging, especially when it comes to, quite higher names.
That's so interesting to hear, like
Yeah.
you got that quick response because, it's nice to hear because it's such a tough job and you don't often get a lot of, I love the clients so much, but you don't get a lot of thanks at the job. So it's nice to, get like some appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know that could happen in terms of like not hearing back and
all the time.
Yeah. And like Jess said, it's been really bad since the pandemic in the States. There's something that happened, and even just coming back from Cannes and seeing so many of friends from America and stuff there, it was just so interesting hearing them say, like, look at, it's still just as bad. Like it's been 5.5 months now that I've been over here, and I'm just like, you know, thinking in my head a little, maybe it's getting a little bit better in LA, and it's like, no, it's still just horrible and the same.
Yeah, I've talked about this before on a previous episode, but there used to be a time as casting directors where an agent in the US would see your name on a script and know your sort of quality of work that you do and what you're attracted to, and they would immediately read it just because your name was associated with it. And that is no longer happening. And it's been fascinating because I reached out to sort of a senior agent over at UTA to be like, do you guys have anybody covering anything? And he was like, well, just if there's something, if you find someone special or something special, reach out to me and I'll take a look. And I'm like, well, I'm not signing on to projects that I don't like or don't believe in. So they're all special in my head. And so it was so fascinating because I said that to him of like, no one's reading anything anymore. And he was like, yeah, it's gotten worse. He just acknowledged it, but wasn't like,
I'm not going to change it. Yeah.
And they're not giving submissions like how you were kind of talking about earlier, that you'll call and you'll give your ideas and stuff. I haven't had a US, because I still have 3 movies in the States I'm casting. Nobody reaches out with suggestions anymore unless it's like you have to like pointedly ask 4 times, like, do you like anybody else? Please send me your ideas. Like, we need,
like begging.
Yeah. Well, listen, like, email us tomorrow, please, because we will send you ideas. I mean, my God. Seriously. Yeah, that's mad. Do you have like a kind of, obviously we have like Spotlight here, but what do you have in the US? Is there a database that's similar kind of database with all the union actors or non-union or everyone,
It sort of covers the gamut between union and non-union, but for us it's Breakdown Express. And the sister side is Actors Access. And then more recently, I think Spotlight has taken over Casting Networks. And so they're sort of rebranding it and trying. They're getting it to a place where they're really competitive with breakdowns now, which is great.
Yeah. And to be fair, I love Spotlight. Like, they are so good. And coming from using breakdown for so long, for the entirety of my career until moving to the UK, it was really funny because I was like, with my first project over here, I was like, I can learn this easy. I'm sure it's just so similar to breakdown. And then I went and did it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so different, that they had to tutor me for like 2 hours on the phone to figure it out. But then functionally, I was like, this is a million times better than breakdown. And I was like, I wish Spotlight, I'm hoping that Spotlight will continue to rise and create such quality stuff because it's so much easier. And if people in the States have access to it,
I like it. It's quite user friendly, and I'm terrible with tech and anything like that. I've managed it.
And I think the thing that makes them even better is the fact that they're so willing to listen to our needs and accommodate them.
Good.
Because I think on the breakdown side, we feel a little bit like we're being held hostage because they cater to the reps more than they do to casting directors. And because it was an industry standard for so long, they just can do whatever they want. So I'm really eager to embrace casting networks.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll look out for it.
Well, Elle, we have a question. So we don't really have a question, but we are curious if you have any questions about casting. Like, is there anything you wanted to know that behind the curtain?
I was just thinking about that actually. So one thing and this kind of ties into my like whining moment. And it's not about casting, it's about clients really. So I often get, with the rise of self-taping, and this has gone on since pre-pandemic as well, it's not like it didn't exist before then and it wasn't becoming more prevalent. I get a lot of like into these conversations and email exchanges with clients saying, I've taped for so many things over the past X amount of months and I'm not getting them. What am I doing wrong? What should I do differently? And I just find that such a hard question to answer because I feel like they're doing a good job most of the time. But I wonder if, it's, and we always try to get answers from, casting directors on each project that someone tapes for. And we normally do, which is great. And either way, we get a response. And normally it's a positive response, but just not going their way. And I wonder if, like, actually, like, how do you manage the volume and watching all of those tapes and kind of processing them and like how do you do that? Because I find it hard enough with the ones that we have to watch and kind of engaging and staying like, okay, yeah, this is fine, it's sendable, like I don't know how you manage it.
Yeah,
because I'm not sure if they are doing a great job or not. It's so hard to
Yeah, I think honestly it's become, the job is different now than what it was when we first signed up for it. Because, now we are media managers to a degree. So a lot of it is making sure that we're allocating enough time to be able to properly review all the material and stuff. And I think, a lot of it is keeping track of self-tape requests and seeing what's coming in. And, if we're lucky, we have a support staff. So it's sort of splitting work between our associate and ourselves. And so it's challenging because the volume is way more, but we're not in the room for 6 hours of the day. And so we're able to allocate that time to watch tapes. But as far as like the feedback and if the person is doing a job versus not getting the job, I mean, I feel like those two are two different things. Like somebody can do a great tape and still not get the job because of X, Y, and Z. There's so many reasons why someone won't get the job.
Yeah.
But I think if someone continues to deliver good auditions, even if they're not booking it, like that means a lot to us as casting directors to be like, listen, when we're starting a new project, we have a database, sort of like a timeline of these actors' growth and abilities. And so we get to see them progress and to be able to say, you know what, to a producer that we're starting a project with, I know someone who's really great and who could be right for this. This is a great tape they did that we have from another project. Take a look.
Yeah. So
we sort of do like a pre-pitch.
Doing those good tapes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say it's kind of interesting in volume terms because I'm new to the UK and I did those two small little things a couple months ago. And I was like, partly I was like, okay, this is an opportunity, like where usually in the states where my knowledge is a bit more expounded and whatnot, I would pick who I like, go with it, and be done. And I have such good name recall and stuff that when an agent calls me or emails me and is like, "Hey, what do you think of them?" I can pretty much say.
They're talking about. Yeah.
And so like this time it was kind of funny because not only did I was like, "Oh, this is an opportunity to read more people, so I can get to know more actors and see them actually act and do all that stuff." But then I started realizing because I was getting requests for feedback, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I have to now remember. I had to like go back into my emails, go back onto Spotlight, find out exactly, because it could be like, Vera so and so, and I'm just like, I don't know recall yet, and so I would have to go do it, and that took so much time. And then I would either get distracted or another email would come in or a phone call and I'd be like, and then I'd forget for like 2 weeks and then I'd feel awful. And so, I mean, it's kind of funny kind of being on the newer side of that, of like, I just need to get better at it because even just yesterday I met with an actor in Cannes and he was like, all I want is feedback. He's like, that's the
right.
Because I like to ask everybody. Yeah, I like to ask everybody, like, what can casting do to like help you? Like, because we want casting to have a good reputation of like getting people like what they need on every aspect of the job. And he was like, all I want is just like some kind of feedback, even if it's generic. And I said, well, I think again, I'm hoping that maybe the younger casting generation of talent, of casting directors and stuff, will maybe be a bit more open to that. Of giving that, because I try to.
Yeah, I think they are. Like, honestly, like, it also depends what agency you work at here. Like, some of my first, one of the companies I worked at, they were kind of just like, we don't chase feedback because it annoys the casting directors. But I think that slightly changed because of the volume of like tapes and stuff, and that like lack of connection between a person going into a room and meeting someone physically.
Yeah.
You kind of need a little bit of something back when you're just kind of sending things off and you don't really know if you're pitching it exactly right. But I did
because I do.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think like there's some that I mentioned this yesterday that you just kind of said is like when we were in person more, I think there was it required less feedback because the actor could feel it in the room, whether they killed it or they didn't, or even as a casting director, I'd be like, oh, that was great, thanks. Like there's different ways, things that we say that was like, oh, that was really awesome. And, or if you did it 5 times and still didn't take the note, I think they could walk out and be like, probably did get that one,
can walk away and leave it.
There's
a sense of like walking away and leaving it behind. And I think if you're like sat with your tape that you taped and you can watch it again and again and again and think, oh, I should have done another version, and it's like so but I think as well, like, are there certain agencies that you kind of feel are just like overly, or you don't, obviously not naming them, but just wondering if you do feel this, if there's certain agencies or managers that you feel are like overly aggressive and pushy?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we don't mind saying names on this, but we call people out all the time. We also praise people, to be fair.
Yes, it's balanced. I think, the aggression usually comes in for the pitching rather than feedback is what I have found.
Oh yeah,
like,
sure. Sorry,
I mean
like pitching. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think they'll, sometimes folks, I think we really appreciate the agents that listen to us and respect, when we say we don't think this person is right because X, Y, and Z. But there are the ones that go over our head and go to the producer and, say that we should have this person tape or go to the studio and the network, which just doesn't feel great for us. But
that's just
I think
done
it's also
here. Like, you just don't do that. Yeah. You just honestly, like, it never happens because you just destroy your like relationship with the casting director, and they'd never see your client again, and it'd be awful.
Yeah. To be fair, that's happened to me where producers have, or agents have done that with producers, and it just puts such an awful taste in my mouth. Because I'm like, because again, the producer most of the time doesn't get these pitches. So he's like, yeah, sure, we'll see him. And then he forwards it to me. That goes into my other like 1,000 emails that I now have to deal with. It's like, to me, it seems, and I don't think I've ever once had that happen where that person ended up getting the job. So
no.
It's just like,
yeah, it's probably because they're not right and they've not taken, I think for me, it's like, I love a response. Like, if they're not right, they're not right. Great. I've tried. You are the person who knows best. You said they're not right. I'm not going to keep flogging a dead horse. Like, it's just not, but I know some agencies do kind of push. But yeah, it's interesting because we don't really have that level of like going beyond. People just don't generally. I mean, I'm sure some people do it now and again, but generally it's just not the done thing. But certainly there must be some. To be fair, I don't think
too many people in the UK push too hard.
Right. Okay. Good to know. So we should push harder.
But like I said, I think it's nice because I think you guys just appropriately pitch, and then you like, it's always kind of like a very cultivated, like, here's who I have who fits the actual description. I feel in the States, people tend to just like throw spaghetti at the wall, and it's just so frustrating. Like, I know, I will say, like, they've gotten a lot better, but like there's this talent agency called Aqua that literally, it's like, you could just literally put, honestly, it's like they just give you like 100 submissions, and it could be a male in his 30s, and they're sending you 20-year-old females, and you're like, what? It's ridiculous, and it's such a time suck. You should just delete it.
Definitely. I mean, that's one way to do it, but not going to work, probably.
Yeah, we need a little bit more of a curation happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Elle, for chatting with us. Before we let you go, we have a very important question, and maybe you did answer it before, but maybe it's a different answer. If the world was ending tomorrow and you had to choose one final cocktail to drink, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. Do you know what? I'm going to go Bloody Mary, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. It feels delicious and nutritious. Do you know what I mean? It's like a meal. But it's got
do you go
like
spicy
spice, alcohol,
or not spicy?
Definitely spicy. Yeah.
Same.
I don't know if that's a different
spice
name for it, but
I don't know, but it's delicious. I'm with you on that.
That's what
I need all the garnishes too.
All the garnishes, like lots of spice, salt, and extra strong. That's what I go for.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your input and your stories, and I know we're both very excited to continue working with you.
Definitely. Thank you both for all the support and meeting clients, and they love it so much, and it makes us look wonderful, and that's amazing. So, and thank you for having me. It's been really fun.
Anytime.
My first podcast, probably the only podcast I'll ever do, but yeah.
We'll bring you back.
Okay.
Amazing. Well, thank you, and cheers.
No worries. Cheers.
Cheers.
If you love listening as much as we love sharing, click subscribe on our YouTube channel or find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.